Yo, how's it going everybody? You got Sketch here and welcome back to the channel. On this episode we're taking a look at a first-person shooter on the PS2 that doesn't get talked about nearly as much as it should. This game is equal parts James Bond with its espionage and Rambo with its at times over-the-top action set pieces and gunplay. We're checking out Cold Winter, developed by Swordfish Studios and published by Vivendi Universal Games and Sierra, released into the PS2 in 2005. I remember seeing this at a bud's house back in the day and thought it looked crazy for a console shooter even back then, but I never played through it until several years later. It's interesting that it doesn't come up more when discussing FPS games for that period, since this one was a solid experience. Though before banging on too much more, let's look at the story. Andrew Sterling is working for MI6 and is captured on a mission in China. With all of his files being deleted to prevent media blitz, he is rescued by Agent Kim and Daniels moments before he's set to be executed. From there, it becomes a world tour after agreeing to work with a private security firm in exchange for his rescue, and each destination will escalate in danger as you pursue John Gray. Gameplay-wise, you've got a first-person shooter taking you through 11 missions, visiting numerous locales across the globe. Cold Winter features several mechanics that will become commonplace in the next console generation, like flipping items over to create cover, sprinting, and aiming down sights. Searching guards and smashing crates for more ammo and supplies is something you'll need to do here, as it will keep you prepared for your objectives. Your health does not regenerate on its own and will require the use of health kits you find along each mission. You've also got armor that does soften the blow temporarily, but once it's out, Agent Sterling becomes quite squishy under fire. If you run out of ammo, you still have numerous throwable weapons like Molotovs, fragment, and smoke grenades, alongside a trusty pistol whip in close quarters. You can hold 2 weapons at a time, and ammunition crates will be spread out around each map to replenish your arsenal. You can use turrets and other devices found along the way, ranging from lockpicks to C4 bricks. You can also get clever with hazards around the playfield like red barrels and fire extinguishers that can act as explosives when a gang of ops surround them. The controls did take a moment to get used to, since I'm more wired to modern FPS games these days, but once it all clicks, you can cruise around the map in its encounters with relatively slick motion. When aiming down sights, you can't sprint out, and considering that the precision aim is tied to clicking the right thumbstick, you can accidentally leave yourself open during heated encounters. The aiming, despite the slight learning curve, is there when you need it to be. Even with the heavier weapons, you can precision aim quick enough, allowing you to hit your targets before getting overwhelmed. That's not to say these controls are perfect, since they were bashed in the past for being somewhat sluggish, and I can attest to that by saying it's an adjustment to get comfortable with them at first, but it's possible. There are several set directives per stage and a fairly linear path to completing them, along with contacts that will help steer you in the right direction. Along the way, you'll have a ton of weapons at your disposal based on region, from pistols, submachine guns, rifles, and a badass shotgun that straight up rips things in half. There are a lot of special weapons like sniper rifles, RPGs, grenade launchers, and a flamethrower that booms like no other, so as far as weapon variety, this game has got you covered. There are secondary objectives that contribute to your ranking for each stage, giving you bonuses for finding intel, combinable items, number of unique weapons, accuracy, and number of downed enemies. Some of the intelligence files are in clever locations like air ducts, the tops of shelves, and at times various lockboxes, so keeping your eyes peeled is a must if you're trying to find everything. Getting your first clear will unlock the elite difficulty setting, but regardless of rank, no additional unlocks come with it besides player skins for your save profile. Enemy AI is pretty decent, with them using strategies to drive you out of cover, and depending on difficulty, are quite accurate when they fire at you. Enemies will swarm your position and take up heavy arms like sniper rifles and RPGs, making outgunning your enemy paramount to survival, especially on the higher settings. There will be times where they just run at you, but it is satisfying when they line up for collateral plays. Graphics wise, Cold Winter is running on the Renderware engine and has some fairly sharp visual effects for the 2005 shooter. Through the game's 11 missions, you'll have several areas throughout Asia in pursuit of John Gray. You get a decent variety of locales set in China, Egypt, Qatar, and eventually Prague as the narrative unfolds. The backdrop of fireworks as you make your prison break set a decent visual bar, and the environments become part of the show, similar to EA's upcoming Black. You get a surprising amount of well-detailed environments from start to finish, with a variety of outdoor and interior sections. These are on the sharper end for console shooters of the generation, though would be surpassed eventually. While the original Xbox was proven to be a powerhouse during this generation for shooters, Cold Winter certainly shows some muscle for the PS2. The particle effects don't leave impact marks on everything, but items like crates and wooden cover will splinter as they break. Impact marks on your bullets can be seen on walls and some barricades, but even more so on your enemies. Cold Winter is crazy with the gore and dismemberment, as it uses a similar system to Soldier of Fortune, a franchise known for its excessive damage effects and animations. Well-placed headshots will liquefy craniums, and shotgun blasts will separate limbs from their previous owner. While it's not quite as extreme as Soldier of Fortune games, it gets close, especially when the explosions come into the picture. Enemies ragdoll when hit depending on bodily position, and have unique and brutal damage animations. There are a lot of cutscenes and cinematic sequences throughout the game, game, and it takes you through an action-packed spy thriller. The cutscene models do have some rather rough-looking characters, even for 2005 standards, though they're typically not around long enough to be bothered by them. For every model that looks really good here, you get others that look kind of like Xavier Renegade Angel as far as facial expressions, which is at times a funny immersion breaker. Weapons are bountiful, and you get a wide variety of tools throughout the game. You get several rifles, submachine guns, special weapons and gadgets, all with their own reload and firing animations. Depending on region, several different weapons will be at your disposal, which is all a nice touch. It's similar to how GoldenEye had region-based weapons on each stage that mixes up combat with the stage hazards, providing numerous ways to go about encounters. Sound-wise, Cold Winter has some great audio backed with its soundtrack by composer Mark Willett. This is pretty interesting considering that this game was one of his first scores to gain traction, later moving on to work with several major American sports organizations as a lead composer and solo artist. As for Cold Winter, the music rips with a versatile selection of tracks that are equal parts brooding ambience and espionage flavor grooves the likes of GoldenEye. There are a lot of string and wind instruments heard throughout the game, and these all pretty much slap, nailing the vibes of mid-2000 shooters. For our first outing, Willett makes a solid first impression. Sound effects are punchy, similar to EA's upcoming Black, with some incredibly raucous explosions in heavy supply. Guns all have unique audio with a fair amount of detail between each region's weapons. The flamethrower in particular just growls as you fire it, and it's awesomely hilarious. The weapon audio has an almost 80s movie feel with them being loud, yet distinctive enough to roughly tell the differences between them. Each weapon as you move through the game gets more powerful as it progresses, and it's an attention to detail hearing the increasing boom. There's a lot of dialogue between in-game cutscenes and segues, and the voice acting cast is quite diverse even if the story itself isn't anything out of the ordinary. The dialogue is fun, featuring the vocal talents of Tom Baker, Nathaniel Parker, and Christy Wu. It's rare to see one of the OG doctors from Doctor Who in a video game, and Christy Wu, who also went on to do a fair bit of high-profile voice work and television. The loading screens are often voiced, adding an extra layer to each upcoming mission. Several of these are actually fairly lengthy breaks in the action, all with that 2000s action movie feel. The ending is particularly gnarly considering that right when you think the villain gets away without retribution, it's only to be met with an international delegation of spies and mercenaries on the London docks. It's a brutal ending, but at the same time, fitting for a villain of this stature. The voice acting is overall decent with a script written by Warren Ellis. It's a solid cast of characters and contributors here. While it may not be groundbreaking, it is a fun ride you can pay attention to or switch off and just enjoy the journey. To sum it all up, Cold Winter is a pretty decent FPS game for the PS2 that I don't hear come up much in conversation, but it's still one I recommend to FPS fans. It's got a lot of action, and if you're into James Bond films of the late 90s and early 2000s, there are several things that will likely snare you in. While it may not be perfect, it does get a lot of things right. The multiplayer servers have been offline for a long time now, but you can do 2 to 4 player local co-op. It's interesting it got mixed reviews on release, but overall was widely recommended to be played and considered to be a standout game of 2005. The controls do take a second to get used to, but once you dial it in, you'll be smoking international ops in no time. There aren't many difficulty spikes either, but some parts will test you by throwing mobs of enemies at you in tight spaces, or wide open ones with a lot of heavy weapons. There's also still a relatively cheap pickup for the PS2, going for around $12 for loose copies, and around $22 for complete copies. If you like FPS games of the 2000s, this is worth a look. Cold Winter for the PS2 gets an 8 out of 10 and comes recommended for FPS fans as well as action game fans that are into spy thriller scenarios, as it leans heavily into that with a military twist. It's also an inexpensive pickup for the PlayStation 2 that will give you a good 7 to 10 hours of playtime depending on if you're going for 100% runs. If you see this one at your local game shop or convention, give it a go. There's actually a good bit to appreciate here. And if you made it this far into the video, thank you so much for watching. If you found this video helpful, that's awesome. Glad you used it as a resource. Check back often. We'll have more reviews and commentaries come up in the near future. But until then, take it easy and stay safe out there. I'll see you on the next one.